Hello, all, I'm Michael with WriterSanctuary. So, what inspired you to write? Now, I've known I've been wanting to be a writer since I was 9 years old. I think it was when I read Treasure Island, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and The Time Machine that summer. I knew I wanted to share my own stories. Unfortunately, there were a lot of hurdles in my path. I've always had an overactive imagination as a child. I could pick up just about anything and use it as a toy of some sort. In fact, I remember putting or drawing wheels on an eraser and then turning it into a streetcar on my desk. I think I was in second grade. Pencils could be spaceships. My imagination was exceptionally rampant. In fact, it got to one point where my teachers thought I was mentally retarded until I took a test and blew them all out of the water. At which point they wanted to skip me a couple of grades, but mom thought that I would have a hard time making friends because I was more advanced. And needless to say, that in high school I dropped out because I was bored. I did manage to get my GED, and I'm now in college, so it all worked out in the end, kind of. I'm almost 50 and I'm doing college, so I don't know. Anyway, when I was a kid, I used to play or I used to expand on the ideas that already existed or creating my own worlds, which is, like most kids will do, G.I. Joe versus Transformers. That's a whole epic thing all by itself. But I can sit and play alone for hours on end without having anybody to interact with, except for my imagination. Well, in some ways, I was discouraged by family members, um, and yeah. However, my seventh grade typing teacher, Mr. Newman, he he let me embrace the storytelling part of things. So every day, instead of doing typing tests or doing um, procedures from the book on the typewriter, he would let me write any story I could come up with that day because the length of the story demonstrated the speed at which I type, and the spelling of the words demonstrated my keystrokes, my fingers. So essentially, as long as the stories were long, I'd ace the class. And so that's what I did for a whole trimester. It was nothing but a new story every day. Now, throughout my adult life, I tried a few stories here and there. I've tried writing in my 20s and 30s, and it didn't really go anywhere. That's because imposter syndrome has a way of strangling your effort. I never thought I was good enough. I didn't think anybody would like my stories, and the people that did like them, I assumed they were just saying that to be nice. And there's a lot of people that are still in my life today that are pretty pissed off because I deleted some good stories back when I was much younger. Well, like I said, when you have imposter syndrome and you don't think you're good enough, it's really difficult to pull yourself out of that. After becoming a freelance ghostwriter in 2012, it launched a whole new world for me. Now, sure, it was mostly centered around text broker and content mills. I was working for clients that pay per word, and I made a fair amount of money. In fact, I made so much money that I was able to quit working for the school district in 2013, and I haven't had a regular job since. It wasn't until about 2016 when I started to take my writing a little bit more seriously. I was tired of being a ghostwriter. I had created thousands of articles for clients all over the globe, but I can't claim any of it because it was all under their name. That's the drawback of being a ghostwriter. They pay you flat out for the piece, you have no more connection to it ever again. And I got tired of seeing some of my best work just disappear into the ether. So I started playing around on Wattpad in 2016, and I know I still have to finish some of the stories that are on it. That's been there for quite some time. But what it boils down to is that I have a lot of stories to tell. I want to do everything. I love doing tutorials. I love doing reviews. I love writing stories about far off, distant places and planets. I am a writer. I am happiest at my keyboard. Now, for me, it's not about the money and riches. It would be nice, but I just enjoy writing. I love telling a story. I love helping people learn something new. I really love doing tutorials and reviews because it feels like I'm helping somebody discover a new tool or product that might help them in their writing journey. And I have a slew of stories in my head. So, don't get me wrong. I would like to make a few bucks to pay the bills and retire from freelancing and go to college full time and maybe, I don't know, pay some bills, but it is what it is. I don't write for the fortune and glory. I write because I really love writing. But for the most part, it's about sharing my imagination with others in a way that entertains them. Sometimes I try to add a moral or two here and there, but for the most part, I want to help them visualize the story I visualize when I'm writing it. And so that's one of the reasons why I think screenwriting and doing more stuff on Creative Sanctuary's YouTube channel is going to be more ideal because that lets me visualize or put things out in a visual aspect. Like, I love writing, I love words, I love text, but it'd be kind of fun to see some of my scenes come out in real life. And once technology got to the point where I could accomplish my tales without pleasing some agent or publisher, that's when I got serious about getting my writing out and published my first book, A Freelancer Tale. That's because I've never been a big fan of trying to write for an audience of one. If your publisher doesn't think he can sell the book, he's not going to. So essentially, you're writing for an audience of one. I don't like that idea, and I will keep writing the stories that I want to tell, not what they can sell. And then when I think it was CreateSpace came out, it was a self-publishing platform before Amazon bought it and turned it into KDP. I was really interested in starting to publish my own work. Unfortunately, that I didn't publish anything until 2021. CreateSpace has been out for almost a decade before that. Again, imposter syndrome. When you don't think you're good enough, you're not going to go forward with it. Nonetheless, I have a slew of tools at my disposal to make a lot of things happen for myself. Everything from writing the book to editing to getting graphic design for the book cover, which I often do anyway on my own through Photoshop because I love playing around with Photoshop. And no, not a single one of those tools is generative AI. My writing is 100% me, baby. I'll use tools to find issues such as redundancies, repeated phrases, if I use the same phrase over and over, which I have a habit of doing. AI, or at least AutoCrit, will go through and scan and make sure that I'm not being over redundant with some things, which I found out I used that a lot in my last book. So I fixed all that. But AutoCrit does not create any text for you. It just highlights what it thinks is wrong. And it is up to you to decide whether it is or not. And it's not always right. So, but it will point out a lot of the things that will polish up your writing for a human editor to go through. So, yeah, that's the only aspect of AI that I ever used in my books. Everything else is 100% me. The first draft, final decisions, the draft, the final product, the graphic design for the book cover. Kingmaker was all those pictures were from Lookout Mountain. We're going to do the same thing with the second book, Fury. Shadows of Atlantic City was a composition of a lot of different images that I put into Photoshop and edited. But at the end of the day, it was all the stories I've read in my childhood that inspired me to share my own. Like, I read Jaws when I was 9. I think I read Star Wars when I was about 10 or 11. I became a Stephen King fan at the age of 12. And all those books, all the classics, just made me want to do more. Treasure Island, I think, was one of the biggest impacts. That and The Time Machine. Loved those two books. And then I got into Sherlock Holmes, and it just, like, all the classics really lit a fire under my ass. Well, at least it did back when I was 9. That's when I decided I wanted to try writing my own and be a published author as well. Now, Stephen King played a major role into my expansion into the uh, dark territories. I love horror, and I really enjoy darker tales. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of sci-fi as well and fantasy, but um, when I write, it often turns dark, and I enjoy that aspect. I do have a penchant for sci-fi, though. I would love to finish the. I have a few ideas for some fan fiction for Star Trek that I would like to get published on Wattpad in the near future. But yeah, for the most part, it's all about the horror, baby. So anyway, what inspired you to start writing? Now, that's one of the fun things I find about the author interviews that I host. Everyone has some interesting origin stories, and I find it fascinating to hear where everybody came from. And some people have been writing their whole lives, and some people decided to pick up writing after they began a career that was fulfilling, but after 25 years, they decided to try something new, so they started writing books. And a lot of that time, their background actually fuels the fire of what they can write. That's one of the reasons why I'm probably going to wind up taking all of the anthropology classes at CU, not just so I can be an anthropologist, but because of the stories that I bet it's going to generate. So essentially, I'm going to have two majors, but it is what it is. It'd be kind of cool to have two bachelor's degrees at the same time, though. Anywho, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. For more videos about self-publishing, blogging, freelance writing, or anything else I cover, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. Now, that's going to do it for me today. I'm going to wrap this up and start working on the final edits of Shadows. I'll see you next time.